for our October 26th meeting, number 34 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. A few reminders, and I know for some of our witnesses who may have maybe a first time, this meeting is in hybrid format. The proceedings are available on the House of Commons website, and the webcast will always show the person who is speaking, not the entire committee. And also for those of you who are here, no screenshots are available, or you cannot take screenshots, but I know Mr. Charlebois and a few others have been here before, so they should know that. Members and witnesses, you may speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. If translation is lost, I will stop the meeting until we can get that resumed, and I'll resume your time without losing any of that, just so we can continue on with proceedings. Thank you, Clerk. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. And then please, if you are on video conference, click on your microphone icon to be able to speak, to unmute yourselves. And for Elizabeth, for those of you here, your microphone will come on automatically. When speaking, please speak clearly and slowly for the benefit of our translators. And thank you very much for our translators for all that you do. I know one of your colleagues had a rough day yesterday, and we certainly appreciate all that you're doing for us here today. And a reminder that to all the members and to the witnesses to put your comments through the chair. We are continuing our study on global food security with a focus on domestic food security. With us today, I would like to introduce some of our witnesses. Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, Professor and Director of Agri-Food Analytics at Dalhousie University.
Monsieur le Président.
Oh. Point of order. Did all the witnesses do their sound checks? Do they all have the correct equipment so that they're able to testify, so that our interpreters won't have any issues?
Merci, Madame LaRouche.
Thank you, Mrs. LaRouche.
Lowe, who has witnessed, his headset has been used in previous appearances in the committee. He did not get a house headset, but it has been tested and has worked in the past. So we should be all good. Bon. So we have Mr. Charlebois from Dalhousie University. Dr. Charlebois, thank you for coming. Good to see you. From the Canadian Cattle Association, we have Ryder Lee, the General Manager, and Bob Lowe, Past President. From Canadian Pacific Railway here in person, we have Elizabeth Hucker, the Assistant Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Canadian Grain. All of our witnesses will be given 5 minutes for your opening remarks, and then we will go on to our questions from our colleagues. So we'll start, Mr. Charlebois, Dr. Charlebois, for your first 5 minutes of your opening statement. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'd like to thank the committee for inviting me again for the 9th time. I've always enjoyed my discussions with this committee over the years. Today, I'm also joined by my colleague, Janet Music, also from the lab at Dalhousie University. From a food security context, Canada has always done well. The Global Food Security Index is made up of a set of indexes from more than 120 different countries. Since 2012, the index has been based on 4 main pillars: food access, safety, sustainable development, and food affordability. For this year, Finland ranks first, followed by Ireland and Norway. Canada is well positioned compared to other countries around the world since we are ranked 7th globally, same as last year. In terms of food access, which measures agricultural production, farm capacities, and the risk of supply disruption, Canada ranks 6th. We produce a lot, and we are also part of a fluid North American economy, which we need to preserve, focus on cross-border trade. All of this allows for better food access. However, our food processing sector needs help and support. Another pillar focuses on sustainable development, the environment and climate adaptability. This pillar assesses a country's exposure to the impacts of climate change, its sensitivity to risks related to natural resources, food waste management, and how the country adapts to these risks. In this regard, Canada ranks 29th. Food waste remains Canada's Achilles' heel, as we waste more than just about anyone else on the planet. The area where Canada performance is of some concern is food affordability. Canada fell one spot again this year, and it sits at 25th in the world. Australia, Singapore, and Holland top the list for affordability. Given the resources that Canada has, we should do better. When it comes to food safety and quality, Canada ranks first in the world, no less. Canada is ahead of everyone, even Denmark and the United States, both renowned for their proactive approaches to food safety. And this is often forgotten by consumers. Notre réputation en matière de salubrité.
Our reputation brings me to discuss the Barton Report presented 5 years ago. The Barton Report was talked about freeing up the potential of the agri-food sector. Unfortunately, it has been forgotten. It was mentioning the expanding populations around the world, a growing demand for protein in Asia, and a need for reliable markets like Canada. As the 5th largest agricultural exporter in the world, Canada can be the trusted global leader in healthy, nutritious, and sustainable food in the 21st century. The report indicates that Canada has the potential to become the 2nd largest exporter in the world. Second, the strengths of our agri-food sector are reliable food supply, resource availability, arable land position, and strong research clusters. In addition, global opportunities relate to exploding demand from emerging markets and increasing global supply constraints on land, water, energy, and carbon emissions. Our agri-food exports have continued to grow despite the challenges in the sector, reaching over $82 billion in 2021 and exceeding the previous goal of increasing agri-food exports to at least $75 billion by 2025. With a better logistics network and resilient supply chains, we can do even better. On November 15th of this year, the world's population will reach 8 billion people. When it comes to global food security, Canada is barely an afterthought, and this is unfortunate and it has to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Charlebois. Just before we head on to our next witnesses, just a couple of housekeeping items that I was remiss. Would like to welcome Mr. Longfield, filling in for Mr. Durand today for a little while. Welcome back to the Agriculture Committee. We've certainly had you here in the past. As well, Martin Shields, filling in for Ms. Rood. Welcome, Martin. You're no rookie to agriculture. It's good to see you here. And certainly, Madame LaRouche, bienvenue for Mr. Perron. Now we will also so I've kind of asked a few of you before we started. We are going to likely have votes here in a bit. I just want to make sure the room, we have unanimous consent to carry on through the bells and vote by the app. I want to make sure that we have that here. If there are any concerns if we do that. Seeing none, that will be the way we proceed. Thank you very much, colleagues. That's very nice for our witnesses as well. So now we will move on to the Canadian Cattle Association for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Bob Lowe, and I'm the past president of the Canadian Cattle Association. I also serve as vice chair of the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. I'm here today to speak to beef producers' role in addressing food insecurity by continuing to produce our high-quality, sustainable, nutrient-dense protein that feeds millions of people every year. There are several factors that need to be considered.
Yeah, merci. Mr. Lowe, we're just going to have to ask you to hang on for 1 second. Stop the clock. Your translation is not working. I'll maybe pass on to the clerk. If it's the microphone, do you have your microphone close? Is that the issue?
He doesn't have the right headset.
Okay. Mr. Lowe, unfortunately, you don't have the right headset, and it's not working for translation. I don't know if Mr. Lee is there also online, and perhaps he can do the 5 minutes on your behalf.
Sure.
I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Lee, can you do the presentation on behalf of the Canadian Cattle Association? Unfortunately, Mr. Lowe's headset is not working sufficiently for translation.
Fair enough.
Okay, you have just under 5 minutes to go, and so carry on.
Okay, as mentioned, here today to speak to beef producers' role in addressing food insecurity by continuing to produce our high quality, sustainable, nutrient-dense protein that feeds millions of people every year. There are several factors that need to be considered when discussing global food security that I'll touch on today, and these include trade, labor, and sustainability. Trade is important for food security as it increases utilization and consumer choice, increasing food options at home and abroad. 2021 was the 6th year in a row of hitting record export values. Canada produced 181,000 tons of cattle and 1,381,000 tons of beef, of which 50% was exported. 50% was exported. This volume is up 3.8% compared to 2020. Canada exports cuts that are not used or purchased in the domestic market to obtain a higher price. We then import cuts that have strong demand here, but for which Canada does not produce enough of. In Canada, we import about 20% of our annual beef consumption. In essence, trade allows us to decrease food loss and meet consumer needs in Canada and around the world. We export beef to vast regions of the world due to demand. Despite this increasing demand for protein, there are threats that impact our ability to produce, including chronic labor shortages. The Canadian Agriculture Human Resources Council is developing a long-term strategic plan to address the industry's chronic labor issues. The beef industry is involved in the process. We're optimistic the plan will offer a strategy for all stakeholders, including government, that'll help Canada's food production system. Canadian beef producers are well positioned to meet the global protein demand, leading the way internationally in sustainable production practices. While production methods differ by region and landscape, our goal is aligned to contribute to Canada's economy and food production while conserving and protecting Canada's environment. Our industry recognizes we can't separate the food security crisis from the climate crisis because how we respond to one will impact how we are able to respond to the other. The Canadian beef industry takes our responsibility to produce beef sustainably seriously. We have one of the lowest greenhouse gas intensities for beef in the world, and we developed an ambitious target to reduce that emission intensity of Canadian beef by 33% by 2030. Our 2030 goals put us on track to meet or exceed the government's absolute target. And note that the 2030 beef strategy goals focus on emissions intensity. It means we're improving efficiency regardless of how many cattle we raise or how much we produce. As an industry, we're contributing to the food security crisis by feeding the world's demand for beef with the most sustainable option. So that's how we're addressing the food security crisis. If Canada's cattle production is reduced, the world may be left more dependent on less environmentally friendly beef from other nations. The world needs more environmentally friendly food products, not less. And Canada has a competitive advantage when it comes to producing high quality, sustainable beef. Global food security is complex with many factors to consider, and we're confident in saying Canadian beef producers are part of the solution. As producers, we're having these conversations domestically and internationally through platforms like the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. We're attending, COP27 coming up in Egypt, as well as the Biodiversity COP15 in Montreal. We need government to work with us to achieve our goals, to speak proudly of beef production here in Canada. The world needs more highly nutritious protein, and the world needs more Canadian beef. Thank you for inviting us, and we're looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation and to being a little bit nimble with us there. Now we'll move to Ms. Hucker for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Hucker, Assistant Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Canadian Grain at Canadian Pacific. I appreciate the opportunity to share CP's perspective today. Your study on global food insecurity is timely. We know that the world is looking to Canada for food security now more than ever. The Russian war against Ukraine and increasing geopolitical uncertainty in many parts of the world underscores the need for more of Canada's grain and grain products to reach global markets. CP is firmly committed to delivering grain for our customers day in and day out. Grain is CP's largest line of business by revenue, and we remain focused on growing our grain business by offering customers the most competitive transportation service and by driving efficiencies through the grain supply chain. Significant capital investments by CP and our customers and impressive innovations in the grain supply chain continue to enhance the safety, capacity, efficiency, resiliency, and performance of Canada's grain supply chain. CP has had a very strong start to our grain year. This year, unlike typical years, we went from 0 to 60, so to speak, since there was very little grain moving on our rail network through the summer months prior to this year's crop. Then the harvest began earlier than the industry expected and forecasted after some favorable weather in the last half of August. We moved rapidly to mobilize cars, locomotives, and crews earlier than our customer had forecasted. We spotted many cars during the last 3 weeks of September compared to the same period in previous years. And we moved more grain into position at ports for unloading than ever before in those same 3 weeks. Then in the first week of October, we spotted more empty covered hoppers than ever before in our history and broke that record again last week. CP is looking forward to continuing this strong early momentum to deliver for our customers. We have the capacity on our railroad in terms of crews and rolling stock to deliver this year's crop safely and efficiently. As committed to in our grain plan, CP plans to supply 6,000 grain hoppers each week while the Port of Thunder Bay is open, subject to market demand. CP's operational plan is calibrated to the available capacity throughout the supply chain. Our forecast assumes that the entire supply chain, including the critical portion through Vancouver, will run at or near capacity throughout the entirety of the crop year. Actions taken by supply chain partners, our customers, port terminal operators, and other railroads that cover the last mile haul in some cases can have a significant impact on the overall throughput. To maximize the grain supply chain, Canada needs to improve the ability to load grain to vessels in Vancouver during the rainy season. Each year, there are extended periods of time when shipping capacity through Vancouver is lost because unionized forces prefer to wait for inclement weather to pass before loading grain vessels, even though solutions exist to permit safe loading, which have been used in the past and in other locations around the world. The inability to load vessels uninterrupted by such weather has cascading effects through the entire supply chain, which not only includes vessels and grain terminals, but also railways, grain companies, and our farmers. Delays in loading vessels unavoidably causes delays to the system since Vancouver-bound grain unit trains must be held at inland terminals or on the rail network. The constraints overall to the network capacity undermines the performance of the entire grain supply chain. The federal government can play a constructive role in bringing together all stakeholders, including unions, to find a reasonable, pragmatic solution to resolve the issue in a manner that maintains high safety standards. This year, CP is completing its $500 million investment to purchase new high-capacity grain hoppers. In total, we'll have more than 73 new CP-owned and leased high-capacity hoppers in our service. When combined with our innovative 8,500-foot high-efficiency train model, the new high-capacity grain hoppers are delivering in excess of 40% more grain per train. Finally, in the first quarter of next year, CP anticipates securing regulatory approval from the U.S. Surface Transportation Board to combine with the Kansas City Southern to create Canadian Pacific Kansas City, the first single-line rail network seamlessly connecting Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Subject to regulatory approval for shippers throughout North America, this will provide enhanced competition and routing options for shippers throughout the countries. This proposed network is a transformative opportunity for Canada's grain shippers because it will directly connect production-rich CP origins in the Canadian prairies to new export destinations in the United States and Mexico. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would be pleased to answer any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Hucker. I appreciate your testimony. We will now move on to questions from the floor. We'll start with the Conservatives. Mr. Lehoux for 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the witnesses. My first question is for Mr. Charlebois. You raised the issue of food waste and that it was an important factor and that we should be more efficient. We know that a lot of food banks here in Canada, because we're talking about food security, but we can think of feeding ourselves properly here in Canada. How could we better distribute food to help out food banks? Because right now, this is what I hear. I've spoken with some of them even last week. Thank you for the question. I appreciate the question. I'm on the board of Second Harvest in Toronto, and I believe that Laurie Nicol will testify during the following panel. It would be a good question for her. I think Second Harvest is a model of that can be used throughout the network. The role of Second Harvest is to recoup as much food as possible. And during COVID, I have to admit that there was more waste. We really didn't talk about this. There were very few measures, but we believe that there was increased waste because of the inefficiency of the supply chains. So we will have to focus our efforts in order to support this type of mechanisms such as Second Harvest, in order to recoup a greater amount of food. Companies such as, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, Mr. Charlebois, but what I'm being told with regards to food bank is that there are a lot less products coming from large chains since the past 6 months, and they have to buy products, and this was given to them before. Perhaps some of the large chains would have a role to play. Well, the large chains have less because people are more careful now with their food. There are more last-minute sales. There are sales of products where the expiry date has passed. The cost of food is increasing, and this is why there is less food being sent to food banks. To come back to a model such as Second Harvest, they recoup food throughout the chain. And this is relevant. Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. We'll ask them the question later. You also raised an important issue, the issue of processing. We have an issue. A lot of processors that I know in my region have labor issues. And this is also why a lot of those plants are working with reduced shifts. When we talk about the slaughterhouses, for example, what would be your recommendation to government? Should we decentralize this issue of slaughterhouses and secondary or tertiary processing? As for slaughterhouses, there's an issue not just in Quebec, it's throughout Canada, and this is something that needs to be recognized. As for regulation and support, but also access to markets. I know that a lot of discussions are being held with regards to a code of practices between retailers, distributors, and the processing sector. This is missing in Canada. If we allow regulations that are more ethical, more fair for processors, this gives a chance to smaller businesses to survive. Right now, it's practically impossible to compete. Thank you. I'm going to change the subject now. Yes, we are a country that exports, but we also import. You spoke about food safety, that we were the best for food safety. Are we able to make sure that imports respond to these same or meet these same criteria as Canadian products? there's a lot of work that remains to be done. I have confidence in the Canadian agency, but for safety, I believe Canada is a model to follow. Canada's performance has been measured with many other countries, and I imagine that you're suggesting that there be some sort of standardization, but it's more difficult. For North America, it's easy, but throughout the world, it's not. We have to recognize that we are a country that deals a lot globally with other countries, and so the risk assessment on foreign lands, the USDA and the FDA has been doing this increasingly, and we should encourage this to look at the risks. Yes, but that's my question. Does the Food Safety Agency have enough resources right now? Is the agency able to ask these types of questions? We seem to be deficient. What's your point of view? I do recognize the deficiency. I believe there's work to be done. But as I'm saying, what worked in the United States, I spent 6 months in the U.S. Last winter, and proactively at the USDA, they assessed the risks on site in foreign lands to make sure that practices are acceptable for Americans. We should do the same. So following the the war in Ukraine, do you think that the extra tariffs are having an impact? I understand the geopolitical issues. I think it was a mistake. We're penalizing our producers, and when we penalize our producers, we're compromising food security in our country and of other countries as well.
Merci, Mr. Lehoux. Now we'll move to Mr. Lewis for 6 minutes, please.
Fascinated listening. I forgot I was up next, so I want to appreciate all the witnesses being here. Perhaps I can continue the conversation with Professor Charlebois. You talked about the World Food Index, and Canada should be quite proud about the food access, safety, food affordability, and then you said there's improvements that we need to do with the sustainable development, specifically food waste. So I was hoping we could focus on that because that's what our committee is doing, working together to see what we can improve on. So you talked about embedding, well, I'd like to talk about embedding efficiencies into Canada's food processing factories. That's something you said that we can do better. And I wanted to talk about food loss prevention, because prevention is really the best way to be efficient. I believe there's about $49 billion of food waste in Canada each year. And right now, one of our major ways of dealing with that is diverting food loss to landfills. The problem is we're still wasting food, and possibly the diversion target might be the wrong yardstick. So instead of measuring how much waste is recycled, we need to measure how much food is saved, and again, by embedding those efficiencies. In my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga, for example, there's a Conestoga meat packers. They took measures to save about 40% in energy, 20% reduction in water, too. And on average, these companies are seeing about a 1-year payback. So can you talk about some of the programs and best practices that food processing can do to get off that diversion target and talk about actually saving the food itself?
I think we need to adopt a language of rewards and merit instead of taxing and penalizing certain behaviors. I think this committee understands the nature of the agri-food space. It is all about high volume and low margins. And so as soon as you start talking about taxation or penalties, it really turns off a lot of people. I think it's important to reward behavior. Some of the programs I've seen in recent years coming out of Ottawa are good when it comes to food waste, but with processing, I think we need to do more. The sector is suffering just because it's hard to remain competitive. And some of the things that we could do with food, of course, is to repurpose food and look at other sectors like energy, for example, and see whether or not we can actually process some of that waste into energy, biogas, and things like that. And so those are some of the things we're seeing in Quebec out east. And we need to encourage those kinds of decisions, in my point of view.
Is there a way to measure the reduction? Not food waste is something you can measure. Is there a way to measure that reduction, other than just looking at their energy cost the energy bills that are being reduced? We have, in my writing, again, there are biomass plants that are there, but can we stop it at its source even and be more efficient?
We can measure, absolutely, and it's been measured in the past. Our lab, we've participated in some of the projects in terms of food waste by companies. I mean, food waste is always a bit of a taboo subject in the private sector, but at the same time, if it's about rewards and recognition and savings, which is what we're talking about, I think there would be some motivations there for sure.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe I'll turn to Ms. Hucker for being here. Thank you. Can you expand? You mentioned briefly the proposed network through the United States and Mexico. Can you expand on that? I didn't get a chance to hear enough about that rail plan.
So we're in the process of the final stages of acquiring the Kansas City Southern network in the United States. It's in front of the U.S. Surface Transportation Board for final approval, which we expect to happen in Q1 of next year. That network will connect CP's network that currently runs as far south as Kansas City. So that's where we connect today. And their network runs down into the U.S. Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, but also has a portion called the KCSM, which will be a part of what we're acquiring, that runs all the way down through Mexico as far south as Monterrey, Mexico City, but also has access to Lázaro Cárdenas, which is also a port off the west coast, which has capacity for containerization and is a focus of our intermodal business. But there's a number of different new markets that will be opened up for Canadian producers, predominantly in Mexico, where there is strong demand for Canadian wheat or corn that's produced. And in the discussions that myself and my team are having with our customers already today about what opportunities might look like subject to STB approval, they're excited about those opportunities, not only into Mexico, but new chicken feeder markets, for instance, down through Louisiana and otherwise that the Kansas City Southern today accesses.
Thank you. We got about a minute left, but I wanted to say that rail is crucial to transportation for Canadian fertilizer. About 75% of all fertilizer is moved by rail. Will it be possible to get more fertilizer sourced from Canada to our farmers? Is that a solution that we can work on? What would it take to increase and deliver our domestic supply of fertilizer?
So unfortunately, my area of expertise is Canadian grain, but I'll happily take away your question and talk to the team and bring back an answer for the committee from that standpoint.
If that's something that you can submit to us, it's just parallel studies that we're working on too. 30 seconds. I just want to thank the witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Now we'll move to Madame Laroche for 6 minutes, please.
Mrs. Larouche, 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the witnesses for being here today and to speak to this important issue of global food security. I was at a conference in Kigali in Rwanda, and this was discussed, this climate change, global conflict, and also food insecurity. My first question will be for Mr. Charlebois. Considering that one of your fields of expertise is food distribution, do you have an idea of the current state of the processing sector with regards to supply chain? What do you mean in Canada for the agricultural supply chain or throughout the world? In Canada, can you tell if things have improved or have gotten worse? Well, things are more or less the same. The working group participated on the supply chain report. The report was introduced a few weeks ago. This committee was presided by Mr. Jean Catousseau and co-chaired by Mr. Jean Catousseau, and we had the opportunity to participate in the writing of this report. I have to say that I did read the report a few weeks ago, and I was surprised. There were quite a few recommendations in this report that are really worth considering. We have a status quo in Canada. We don't give enough value to logistics. We should create a strategic office for logistics in Canada in order to make sure that all governments are working together, the federal government, the provinces, and the municipalities. So there's no coordination, no political and government logistical coordination right now, and that's missing. Thank you. We heard a lot in the news about the price of containers and fees for shippers, have prices gone up or down in the past few months? Prices have gone down significantly. Here's an example. In the port of LA, it's the largest container port in North America. The backlog in January was 109 ships. Were 109 ships waiting to leave their cargo at the port. In October this week, there are 4. So the delays are significantly less. The situation has improved. It's not perfect, but it's much, much better. Mr. Charlebois, considering that there are high standards, how can we make sure that this is maintained internationally, all the while allowing our producers to remain competitive? Is traceability part of the solution? With regards to food safety, we are high performing, but this is a good issue you're raising. Traceability is missing in Canada to show without a doubt that our quality in Canada is excellent. For 20 years now, I have been working on traceability, and we still have a work to do. And the first reason is because different links in the chain are not working together enough. And if we have to coordinate efforts within the supply chain, we would be able to sell our products internationally much more easily, I believe. Thank you very much, Mr. Charlebois. To end, Mr. Lee from the Cattle Association, when we talk about world food safety, there's an issue in the supply chain. There's an issue linked to processing. And this question was asked of Mr. Charlebois, but I'd like to ask you. In my riding in Shefford, I have a small slaughterhouse. Given that the larger slaughterhouses are sometimes hundreds of kilometers from farms where cattle is raised, do you think the federal government should encourage the building and maintenance of local slaughterhouses?
Et pensez-vous que ça pourrait
And do you think this would allow more resilience in the food safety supply?
Well, there's a lot that goes into where slaughterhouses are built, and some of that is where are the animals, and is there a supply there? And I don't know that government can guess that better than the people that'll put their money up into building those. But we think making sure that our regulatory systems, and right now it's some of our rules around that are still hanging around since BSE, make it pretty certain that new slaughter plant capacity isn't going to be built on this side of the U.S. border until we get our regulations aligned with the United States. So I think that's the first step we need to address before we look at others like that.
Si on franchit cette première étape-là?
If we go over this first obstacle, you talked about a first step, but then what could be done?
Well, we look at the size of our herd and our competitiveness here, and what do we have from a regulatory standpoint that we can make it the best place for it. So some of it will be related to cattle supply, and we look at rebuilding that, and there's all kinds of things that go into that. So I'm not familiar with your neighborhood, but if you've got one slaughter plant in there, the likelihood of another one coming in right nearby will really depend on the cattle around it. And we talked a little bit about market access and labor and the people to work in there too.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate that. Merci, Madame Laroche. Now to Mr. McGregor for 6 minutes, please.
And thank you to all of our witnesses for helping guide our committee through this study. Professor Charlebois, I'd like to begin with you. You took the time during your opening statements to mention, when you mentioned sustainable development, you took the time to mention our exposure to climate change. And certainly we have heard that as a reoccurring and perennial theme through multiple studies. I'm just wondering if you can maybe explore that a little bit more for our committee. Specifically, I feel like our farmers are doing a pretty amazing job. They are exceeding our export targets. Many sectors are doing quite well. And I know that we put a lot of pressure on our farmers to meet those targets, and they are coming up to the challenge. But at the same time, they are also fighting a rearguard action against climate events. And we know a lot of our infrastructure can be quite critically exposed. I'm just looking at my own province last November. Do you have anything to add, like within the context, within the theme of food security, what the Canadian government needs to do more of in addressing our exposure to climate change in order to, help our farmers out with that rearguard action?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a very good one and important one. I'll try to be as brief as possible because I think it's a complex issue. What I've seen over the years was very much about patchwork to deal with the impact of climate change. I think we need to accept the fact that risks move. They don't disappear really as a result of climate change. And we often talk about supply chain resiliency or resiliency in general. I think we need to accept that faith and accept the fact that there's always going to be some issues emerging. And the way to do that, of course, is to build better infrastructure and of course, support our farmers and process the best we can to deal with moving risks as much as possible. There's always going to be something that will come along to disrupt business or the growing season or anything within the agri-food sector.
On the theme of exposed infrastructure, I'd like to turn to Canadian Pacific Railway. You're, of course, very familiar with what happened in British Columbia, where Vancouver was cut off from the rest of the country, our busiest port. I'm just wondering, I'm sure Canadian Pacific Railway has a massive business that goes from coast to coast. You are taking a look at your own rail infrastructure and seeing how exposed some links might be to future climate disasters, be it wildfires or flooding events. How is your progress been in identifying those weak links in our rail infrastructure? What is CP doing in terms of a long-term strategic plan to address it? And what more would you like the federal government do to assist you so that our rail infrastructure is able to be resilient in the face of climate-related disasters?
Maintenance plan that we go through associated to our network. I believe the number is close to 20% of our annual revenues we spend back in capital on our company, whether it be infrastructure, IT, or otherwise, which is a very important part of our resiliency in our supply chain overall. When we're looking across the network to areas where there may be issues, typically most of those are focused associated to historical events. So for instance, the Red River in Manitoba and the flooding actions that tend to happen there on an annualized basis. So we have proactive plans in place to manage the situations on a reactive basis, but also on a proactive basis. For instance, through Manitoba in Ontario, we increased the height of our track so that we wouldn't lose the track in the event of flooding. And actually through this year was able to maintain service through that corridor despite some significant flooding overall. So it's an annualized basis of work that we continue to do as we look across our network overall. But it is a significant effort, and a significant amount of our capital is spent towards maintaining our network and creating resiliency in the track and the ballast that's there.
Thank you. And final question to Mr. Lee, since you stepped in to give the presentation. You did make a mention of labor. Despite that, you did mention you keep on hitting record export targets. So congratulations on the beef sector in stepping up to the plate and really hitting that. But of course, you have the Canadian Cattle Association. There's, of course, the feedlots, the processing. In terms of the labor challenges along the beef supply chain, where does the federal government need to step in particularly to address it? And if you just want to take some time to expand on your opening comments.
Well, sure. The labor shortage is right from the farms where cows have calves right through to the grocery store. And we're challenged to hire people to work, especially in rural Canada. We often won't get applications for well-paying jobs that can include housing, can include transportation, and a quality of life that is I think, to be envied. And like I said, it's both cow-calf and it's a feedlot challenge. So it doesn't matter the kind of production. When you get to the spot where you're bigger than one family and you need to hire somebody, boy, it's hard to even get applications. We're short veterinarians, truck drivers, all manner of skilled professions and service providers. And so the government can help make it easy for people to become Canadians. We need to ensure that applicants from outside of Canada can get here to do these jobs. You know, we have trucks
Thanks, Mr.
that
Lee.
are sitting empty.
Sorry, I'm going to have to.
We need truck drivers too.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to have to cut you off there. Thanks, Mr. McGregor. Now, we've seen the bells have started. We're going to carry on, and we will kind of keep an eye on the clock, and we'll take a bit of a break, hopefully after this last two rounds for the Conservatives and Liberals, to switch out the panels, and then hopefully give everybody a chance to vote, or soon after that on the app. But now to the Conservatives, to Mr. Steinley for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My first question will go to Ms. Hucker from CP. And then we asked a similar question when we had Senate committee, and that is, what will the no replacement worker legislation effects be if there is a rail strike? Seeing we're talking about food security and supply chains and some of the risks that there are to supply chain, this new piece of legislation with the no replacement worker legislation, how do you see that working out? And will the trains basically still be able to run if there is a strike in the future?
So it's something that we're actively reviewing. I believe that our concern is the unintended consequences associated to that component. We run commuter rail, for instance, and it's one of the bigger concerns that exists in the event of a labor outage from that standpoint. And so again, we are reviewing it, but are concerned about the unintended consequences. If there's more, sir, or Mr. Chair, that is required, we're happy to take it back and come back to the committee on this subject.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to try to get a question to everyone. And Professor Charlebois, good to see you. We both went to the University of Regina, so I met you in another life. I'm not sure if you remember that, but you did touch on the fertilizer. You did touch on the fertilizer tariff, and I'm wondering, with the fertilizer emission reduction target this government is looking at implementing, how do you see that affecting the food supply going into the future if that policy is put into place?
Well, thank you. It's a fair question. I would say that I'm deeply concerned about the tone related to fertilizer emissions. Ask any farmer, whether it's in Saskatchewan or elsewhere. It's the fuel they need to support their soil in order to increase yields and better our food security situation. It's quite essential. And some of the discourse related to the use of fertilizers in recent months have been quite concerning for us and obviously for farmers as well. So I'm hoping that at some point and I think it's important to do things to counter the impact of climate change and to make sure that we meet our gas emission targets. But at the same time, we also have to recognize that some of the decisions that we're making may compromise our ability to grow food. And that's certainly one example.
Yeah, I think there could be some unintended consequences to some of the policies, as I think that's what you're trying to get at. And Mr. Lee, it's a pleasure to see you once again. And you did touch on something that was very interesting, where our GHG intensity is lower compared to other jurisdictions, competition countries that would raise cattle as well. So I'm wondering if you would be able to expound on that, on how much lower our GHG emissions would be when we raise cattle compared to some of the countries that would fill that void if we had less cattle in Canada to be more self-sufficient.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot goes into it. How we manage our land, you know, the grazing practices we do, our cattle, the breeds thereof, and the tools we use to manage those lands, and even the feed that we feed makes them grow more efficiently and comes up with that intensity. So the modern technology even that we use that helps us grow our cattle faster, our modern management practices. So we've been a decent place for approving new technologies, and that helps as well. To give you those numbers, us versus that country or that country, I don't have those at hand. But, you know, keeping our regulatory approvals process for new innovations is really important, and staying a science-based country that makes the science drive those decisions is really important to continuing to move forward like this.
Thanks, Ryder. I do have one more question. You did mention that possibility of sometimes processing plants going across the borders based on uncertainty when it comes to regulations and maybe even taxation. So what regulations and taxes are keeping us from being a more self-sufficient industry when it comes to cattle? Like, why are we losing those processing facilities to across the border?
Well, we're more than self-sufficient. You know, we export about half of what we produce, so we're good there. But as far as that value add to process, right now it is our SRM rules that are harken back to BSE changes since 2003 that we, since becoming reclassified by the Animal Health Organization as negligible risk, we have the opportunity to update our regulations, become more competitive, and be on a level playing field with the US so that we can, get rid of that difference and move forward from there.
Thanks, Mr. Lee. Sorry, I hate to be the one cutting you off all the time, but you're a popular subject. Thanks, Mr. Steinley. Now we'll move to Ms. Valdez for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for joining today. I'll direct my questions through you, Mr. Chair, to Dr. Charlebois. You mentioned in an article that Canada ranks #1 in the world for food safety and quality. However, we have opportunities, given the result of climate change and the ever-changing environment. I just wanted to know if you can give us any examples of how we in Canada have adapted to these changing times.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Valdez. I would say that right now, Canada performs quite well when it comes to risk management in particular, in animal science, soil science. I think there's a lot of work that has been done that has been quite valuable. Our risk-based assessment process has been very strong. I do sit on the National Advisory Committee of the CFIA, so I'm very much aware of the work that has been done over the years. And I do recognize that the CFIA has learned a great deal. I think there's been some severe mistakes over the years, in particular in relation to the avian flu. And I can think of the Abbotsford situation. I think it was in 2003. That was not very well managed. But now when you look at what's going on this year with the avian flu, I actually do think that they're doing a better job managing risks. And I think the CFIA has done some homework outside our country, learning from other countries, which is not something we were seeing before. So overall, I do consider CFIA as being a learning organization, which has helped Canada go up in rankings when it comes to food safety.
Thank you. You've also said that despite our recent episodes of empty shelves and stockouts, food abundance is certainly something in Canada that we can boast about. We produce a lot, and we're part of a fluid North American economy focused on that cross-border trade. What opportunities do we have to address the global food crisis, in your opinion?
Well, I think we need to look at other markets beyond the United States much more seriously and in a more committed way. I think there's tremendous potential. If you look at China and bordering countries, basically half the world population will be there. The population growing, as I mentioned earlier, will reach $8 billion in a few weeks, 8 billion people in a few weeks. And so that's and the growth is there. So we need to figure out ways to develop that market. And also Africa. In a few years from now, Africa will have 1/5 of the world's population. So those are opportunities, I think, for our agri-food sector that should be tapped much more often.
Sorry. In your opening, you said that Canada's Achilles heel is food waste. And our government has invested $15 million in Guelph, pretty close to my writing, to reduce food waste by 50% by creating a circular food economy. Do you have any comments on circular food economy and diverting waste to other uses?
Well, actually, I think it's a valuable concept. I would go even further. There's been some work now in Canada regarding upcycling in food, and that's the other avenue that I think needs some attention. I think there's some values there. When I was speaking earlier about recovering, rescuing food across the supply chain, uh, up upcycling food is a concept that I think has a lot of value that could actually eliminate more food waste across the supply chain, repurposing waste into new products for the market. And so those are the discussions that and I do applaud the current government for focusing more on food waste. Some of the programs that have come out of Ottawa have been very strong.
Thank you. I'm curious to know if you've published any documentation on fertilizer.
Recently, I have not. No, we haven't looked into. You mean in terms of the economics of the use of fertilizers in particular?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, no, we have not. I think our last report on fertilizers was when I was in Saskatchewan, actually many years ago, over a decade ago.
Thank you. Chair, do I have some more time? In that case, thank you to all the witnesses.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valdez. That will wrap up our first panel. We'll suspend for a couple of minutes, grab some food or a drink, and we'll try and get back as quickly as we can and maybe get through our opening statements from our witnesses before we have to take a quick break to vote, if that will work. To our witnesses, thank you very much for your testimony and your time here with us this afternoon. Very informative, and appreciate your participation. With that, we'll suspend for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to our continued study on domestic food insecurity, kind of a bit of a specific on what we've been doing as part of our Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food. This is taking place in a hybrid format that you can watch on the website if you so wish. Of course, witnesses, you can speak in the language of your choice. There is translation. If for some reason translation ends, I'll stop you. We'll make sure we get that back up and running, and then we'll proceed. But as part of that, please speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of our translators to ensure that they are able to do their jobs as well. And please, I will recognize you, so don't start speaking until I recognize you by name. Those of you who are with us online, please click on your microphone icon to start speaking when it's your turn, to get off mute. And for those of you here, you've been here before, but you'll know that your microphone will likely come on its own, and you won't have to worry about it. So I will now introduce our witnesses for the second panel with the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance. Claire Citeau, merci, thank you for coming. From the Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission, Brett Halstead via video conference. And from Second Harvest, Laurie Nickel, good to see you again as well. So you'll each have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, and then we'll carry on with our questions from the floor. And now we'll proceed with Ms. Citeau for 5 minutes, please.
Merci. Mon nom est Claire Citeau, je suis la directrice.
Thank you. I'm the
No boundaries. Given that our mandate is focused on trade liberalization, I will speak to the matter of global food security and Canada's role from a trade policy perspective. Allow me to share 3 highlights. International trade is essential for food security and nutrition, provides livelihoods to millions, and plays an important role in the sustainability of the food system. It is crucial that the trade policy environment is transparent, predictable, science, and rules-based. Policymakers should refrain from using export restrictions and instead reorient support policies toward investments in productivity, sustainability, and resilience. As the fifth largest global agri-food exporters, countries around the world depend on Canada for their food security. The agri-food sector is export-oriented, as we sell over half of the products that we make abroad and in over 150 countries. And for example, anywhere from 50% of our beef to 90% of our pulses and on plates around the world. To ensure Canadian agri-food can continue to play an important role in global food security, exporters must have access to markets, competitive access to markets guided by the principles of free and rules-based trade. International trade serves as the backbone of Canada's food sector and the global food system. It serves as the bridge to get products from where it is grown to where it is needed. And in doing so, trade enables food security while creating economic opportunities for producers, farmers, and SMEs. Trade is also a key factor in the sustainable and efficient use of scarce global resources. According to the Potsdam Institute and cited by the WTO, the World Trade Organization, today 1 in 6 people around the world depend on international trade to be fed. And this number will be around 50% of humanity by 2050. Hence the need for more and better trade. But all too often, international markets for food function poorly, owing to problems like trade distorting subsidies and various forms of protection. Food export restrictions, too, can be highly damaging, as while they may decrease domestic prices temporarily, they destabilize markets and ultimately lead to higher prices elsewhere. The fragility of the trading system harms Canada's ability to be the breadbasket to the world that we aspire to be. I will share a few recommendations on behalf of CAFTA for policymakers. First, diversify and keep agri-food markets open. This has been instrumental in avoiding food shortages during the 2008 financial crisis, as well as since the start of the pandemic. We must ensure that we do not slide backward and retreat by allowing barriers in the name of food security. Second, limit export restrictions. Policymakers should refrain from using export restrictions, prohibition on agri-food trade, in line with the ministerial declaration at MC12 and the call last month by major multilateral agencies to minimize distortions, market interventions, and subsidies. Today, restrictions on food, feed, and fertilizers in 52 countries around the globe remain a major source of concern. 3, invest in transparency to minimize disruptions. In times of crisis, countries around the world have demonstrated an ability to provide information and notifications of measures adopted in a relatively timely and transparent manner. And such practices should remain in place and be made permanent for sanitary and phytosanitary, as well as technical measures that affect agri-food trade. 4th, facilitate trade. Policymakers should enhance the implementation of the SPS agreement in line again with the ministerial declaration at MC12 and support the greater regulatory cooperation and harmonization of standards, as well as engage with the private sector to reduce compliance costs and expedite the adoption of digital solutions and tools. 5th, reorient existing subsidy policies. The latest OECD report on agriculture policy found that in most cases, existing domestic support in agri-food distorts trade without providing effective solutions to food security and sustainability. It also suggests that instead, public spending should be shifted towards investments in food and agriculture innovation and improving food supply chain infrastructure and resilience. And 6th and last, reinstate the WTO's appellate body. This is the core of the function of the WTO, and it holds the key to stability, security, and predictability to conduct global trade. In closing, I'll reiterate that access to food should know no boundaries. Ultimately, global food security is a security issue. Agriculture trade can feed people, the planet, and the economy, but it can only happen through global cooperation and better predictability and security in the multilateral trading system. As the industry is set to increase exports, our members look to the government to continue to open doors champion regulations that will allow the industry to remain competitive globally, as well as work to limit the use of regulatory approaches that restrict trade and enact barriers. We need to be essentially quicker to the market with products and policy solutions. And ultimately, with the right policy choices, Canada today has an immense opportunity to seize, one that will help the world and strengthen Canada's place in the world and Canada's competitiveness as an agri-food exporter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ito. I appreciate that. Now we'll move to Mr. Halstead for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak on the perspective of Saskatchewan wheat farmers. I'm Brett Halstead, Chair of the Board of Directors of Sask Wheat. I'm a grain and livestock producer from Nokomis, Saskatchewan. Sask Wheat is a producer-led levy organization representing about 24,000 wheat and durum producers. We identify and support research, market development, and advocacy efforts that contribute to profitable and sustainable wheat production. Since 2014, we have committed about $52 million to those research projects. We are partners in a multi-year, multi-million-dollar successful funding partnership with AFC wheat variety breeding programs through the Canadian Wheat Research Coalition. These investments have made important contributions to Canadian and global food security and to economic and social and environmental sustainability. The federal government recently has emphasized the importance of Canadian agriculture and agri-food exports as both a critical sector of our economy and as part of a solution to global food insecurity. Canada is responsible for about 12% of global wheat trade annually, exporting 80% of our total production. In 2022, Saskatchewan's largest crop planted was wheat, accounting for nearly half of all Canadian acres of wheat. This is showing the importance of Saskatchewan wheat for the global food security situation. Saskatchewan wheat producers are very successful at providing high quality, sustainable food source to the world with large positive impact on global food security. Saskatchewan wheat must be competitive in global markets. Saskatchewan wheat producers are price takers. They receive the global price minus the cost of exporting to be competitive and profitable and sustainable. Saskatchewan wheat producers must rely on their productivity and efficiency. There's two areas of concern that I want to address today. Probably don't have time for the grain transportation, so I want to talk mainly about increasing the increasing environmental policy and regulatory burden that we face. Saskatchewan producers have been global leaders over the past 30 years in the adoption of sustainable practices such as reduced tillage, continuous cropping, and more. We have sequestered vast amounts of carbon in our soil and have reduced the total amount of land dedicated to our crop while producing more on those acres. However, Sask Wheat is concerned with environmental policies that we believe place an unfair burden on our export-oriented producers in pursuit of a poorly defined national environmental objectives. These policies will increase farmers' costs with no ability to offset them. International competitiveness will suffer. This will favor our global competitors, some of whom have little or no commitment to sustainable production. The federal carbon tax, we believe, unfairly increases direct and indirect costs of production on exports of Saskatchewan producers. The significant additional costs producers will incur cannot be passed along to our customers, and proposed carbon tax rebates will not offset those increases. Fertilizer is essential to increasing production to improve global food security. The committee has recommended that the Government of Canada ensure access to affordable fertilizer to maximize yield benefits. One of the proposed solutions is enhanced efficiency fertilizers. However, they are more expensive and do not increase yields. If reaching emission targets is depending on their use, then this means we could have increased costs without corresponding increased revenues. Sask Wheat advocates for science-based policy and programs across the government. This requires investment in science. Policymakers must recognize the current limitations of scientific knowledge, the data and the regional and individual levels regarding fertilizer emissions. Farmers need adequate scientific support to economically and practically accomplish environmental objectives within reasonable timeframes. In conclusion, Sask Wheat supports the goal of increasing Canadian agriculture sector revenues. It is important both for the Canadian economy and for increasing global food insecurity. High quality, high protein, sustainably produced wheat is a key component of this global diet, increasingly so amid global trade uncertainties and food insecurity. However, Saskatchewan wheat producers require policies and regulations, programs and funding that enable profitable production and access to global markets. Saskatchewan wheat producers must be profitable to be sustainable. We must be globally competitive to be profitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Halstead. Now I'll go to Ms. Nicol for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak today. Second Harvest is a nonprofit charitable organization dedicated to environmental protection and hunger relief through food redistribution, research, awareness, and education. We work with thousands of food businesses from right across the supply chain to reduce the amount of edible food going to waste, preventing the unnecessary release of greenhouse gases. Our inclusive model ensures this healthy food, healthy surplus food, is redirected to thousands of charities and nonprofits across the country from coast to coast to coast, making their way to the millions of Canadians experiencing food insecurity in our country. As Canada's largest food rescue organization, Second Harvest appreciates this committee's focus on the issue of food insecurity and would like to take this opportunity to outline how our country's food waste crisis is adding to the issue and how we can address it. 58% of all food produced for Canadians, approximately 35.5 million tons, is lost or wasted annually, bypassing the dinner tables of Canadian families and adding over 56 million tons of greenhouse gases to our atmosphere, while at the same time 5.6 million Canadians are food insecure. Addressing food waste is a critical part of the issue for food insecurity. Taking action to support food waste reduction and diversion initiatives can reduce supply issues, mitigate transportation challenges, reduce CO2 emissions, lessen our reliance on imports, and redistribute millions of tons of edible food to families and communities in need. In order to address the issue of food insecurity and its negative impact on Canadians, we are making 2 policy recommendations to this committee. First, we are asking this committee to support the revival of the Surplus Food Rescue Program. The Surplus Food Rescue Program was introduced in July 2020 as part of Canada's COVID response. Through this program, Second Harvest was able to purchase over 9 million pounds of fresh surplus food, like eggs, chicken, salmon, and fresh produce, which we then redistributed to over 350 communities across Canada. The Surplus Food Rescue Program was an example of government leadership and action that had a real impact on the lives of countless Canadians, including our producers. Unfortunately, while the program no longer exists, it is now needed more than ever. Second, we are asking the committee to support the creation of a tax credit to incentivize Canadian businesses to reduce their food waste and provide surplus food to organizations that can redistribute it. Some provinces have already taken this step. Quebec's tax credit resulted in an increase of fresh food being donated to food charities in the first year. However, provincial tax credits only apply to producers, meaning over 100,000 Canadian businesses have the ability to reduce their food waste but do not have an incentive to do so. Second Harvest commends this committee for acting on the issue of global food insecurity. Global conflicts and instability have impacted the stability and predictability of the food supply chain, and Canadians are feeling the effect. However, we have the ability to address a number of these challenges by taking action within our own borders. It's time for us to face the uncomfortable truth. Canada has a food waste crisis, and I ask all members of this committee for their efforts and support to address this crisis head on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nicol. We're going to suspend for a couple of minutes here. I know some of you have already voted, which is great. It looks like Ryan might be having a technical difficulty. I thought you were taking a picture of all of us, Ryan. This is not allowed. So we'll just suspend for a couple of minutes to allow my colleagues to vote, and then we'll get back with the first round of questions. from the whip's office that we're okay to carry on. You know what? It's going to be a shocker, the result of this vote, but I'm willing to carry on. Yeah. I'm going to go on a limb. The Conservatives lost this vote. All right. I know it's shocking. But there's no way. But you know what, guys? We went down together. All right. Steinley for 6 minutes, please.
Well, on that uplifting note, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask a few questions to our panel, and thank you very much for being here and being witnesses today. Mr. Halstead, you had some interesting facts, and you're a good Saskatchewan boy, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a question about there. You said half of the wheat crop in Canada is grown in Saskatchewan. So my question would be is, if there are new fertilizer policies implemented that the government is looking at, as of now, the 30% reduction, how many more acres would you have to use to get to that same half of the Canadian wheat crop in the country in Saskatchewan? What would the effect on yields be with that new policy of fertilizer reduction policy?
Well, there's a lot of unanswered questions and misunderstanding in what's going on there. We don't have all the answers to things like that. But going back to the 70s, we have cut the number of wheat acres down. They've grown other things in the prairies now, like canola and lentils have become larger crops. So there's not necessarily an answer to that because it's a fight between individual commodities, depending on the commodity prices and the expenses as to which crop you're going to grow. And many of those crops need a number of years on a rotation and a number of different fertilizer and input requirements. So there's no easy answer to that, but as you mentioned, we do produce nearly half the acres of wheat in this country. And if you were to cut fertilizer, you would obviously have to increase the acres to produce the same. So that would have to come from somewhere else, but somewhere else is also going to want to keep their acres, or the market will want to keep those acres.
Thank you very much for that. And obviously, you mentioned the carbon tax is one of the environmental policies that producers are fighting and is causing them to be at a competitive disadvantage. So my question would be, what do you see happening if that ends up going to the stated $170 a ton? Does that, obviously there's going to be a big crunch, and is that going to put a lot of producers at a decision point where, is this even financially viable now for us? Can we make a living? Or is it, are we going to be able to do this, or are they going to leave the agriculture sector as a whole?
Yeah, the increases could be much more devastating than what we've had. We currently have high commodity prices right now, and that's due to a number of factors, external market factors, conflicts in the world and shortages in some commodities. But as you increase that, and we're seeing it with food costs too, one of the largest costs of food is transportation. And all of our products, whether we buy as inputs or we sell as an export, requires transportation. And although farmers aren't directly paying that, we are indirectly paying that through our retailers.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with this line of question is, obviously the carbon tax is playing a role when it comes to food security, because those transportation costs are getting passed on to consumers, and fewer dollars are going to be able to be used to buy groceries in the store, and the price of groceries are going to be ever increasing because that gets passed on to consumers. So farmers are price takers. At what point does that basically become unsustainable for a farmer who cannot pass on those prices? And you're taking the global, like you mentioned, you take the global price, right, for when you're a farmer. So what do you see as, other than the carbon tax, the next most damaging policy that you're facing right now when it comes from this federal government?
Well, we don't know what a fertilizer emission target will totally entail yet. We're worried about that, and there's a lot of unanswered questions in that. So that's something we're flagging. It's a consultation and discussion thing that's happening right now, and it's something of great concern to us. How do we continue to sustainably produce if the cost of that's going to go up, or the ability to get fertilizer is going to get harder? We don't have all those answers right now, and it's a concern.
Thank you very much. I was thinking the ability to get fertilizer would be one of those concerns. I'm going to shift right now to Ms. Nickel, and you said of something that was very interesting that I caught in your presentation, is that's the GHG emissions from wasted food. So if you were able to, what would be one of the best policies put in place to help reduce that wasted food GHG emission, and something that we could do? Because I find that that's a big number, and we're talking about trying to lower emissions and food security, and we've seen some policies that actually hasn't resulted in lowering the emissions. But what could we do when it comes to food waste to lower emissions in the near future?
Mandate measurement and provide incentives. So producers and manufacturers and retailers are mandated to measure and monitor their waste, hit targets, set targets and hit the targets, but provide incentives to do that. And as soon as you do that, we're going to lower that, because prevention is far more important than diversion. Even in upcycling, we want to prevent this at source.
Thank you very much, and I have 15 seconds left, and I know that there's lots of other questions, but thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking your time and presenting before the committee.
Thanks, Mr. Stanley. We'll now move to Ms. Taylor-Roy for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Well, there's three very different areas today, and I'm going to start by asking Ms. Nickel about the food waste crisis that's facing us right now, which I think is, very closely related to the climate crisis and the world hunger crisis, in fact, fueling them. And you mentioned the surplus food rescue program that was in place and how successful that was. And you mentioned that now we need it more than ever. Why is that we need it more than we did during COVID? And would you put that program back exactly as it was, or what might you change in that program?
I think everything evolves. I think it's as important, more important, as we're heading into a recession. There are more Canadians that can't access food than ever before. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, even though the program ended, when we closed the borders to potatoes, we kind of started it again, where we got funded to purchase some of those potatoes, mm-hmm. while a whole lot of them were destroyed. But yeah, I think it's a really critical program that supports producers, it supports Canadians, it supports the environment. Like, it's a triple win. I don't know why we're not going to do this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so would you make any changes to that program?
I think based on the commodities, maybe, I think we would open it up. I mean, it was very specific to COVID and the result of the restaurants' closures. Right. So it was about that big packed and all that food. So I think you'd have to open it and expand it.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I was also wondering, you mentioned the tax credit that right now only applies to producers.
In 4 provinces, yeah.
In 4 provinces. So you're looking for a federal tax credit then, and you want it, who would you like it applied to? What is your thought on that?
I think all businesses should have access to an incentive to get them to reduce their food waste. And I don't often look to the South and say, wow, they've got some really good tax incentives, but they do on food waste, and it's working. And it's eliminating their food loss and waste across it in the U.S.
In the U.S., yeah. Okay. Very good. I'd like to turn actually to Ms. Citeau next to ask about the you focused on international trade, which we know Canada does very well as an exporter of food, and that we could do more by some of the changes that you have mentioned. But when we're talking about global food insecurity, it seems that some of the problems that have been realized in the last while have to do with issues that cause problems when it comes to trade. Things like wars, obviously climate events, and unreliable partners that you can't trust to necessarily deliver the goods they say they will. So I'm wondering what you think about the balance between actually increasing our self-reliance within Canada and trying to ensure that we can produce more here, because it seems to me that addresses some of these issues better perhaps than increasing our trade with other countries.
The broad view is that there's a need to manage risk, mm-hmm. and being self-sufficient in food does not do this. In a global food system where we are intertwined, and we see that very clearly with our supply chains across North America, we are stronger by managing risks and reinforcing our supply chains and our relationships with key trading partners rather than being...
Yeah, no, I understand that idea, but could I just interject next? How do we manage the risk of a war in Ukraine? Or how do we manage the risk of climate change when actually global trade increases the climate crisis? I mean, how do we manage those particular risks that we've been facing recently?
By having better rules, modernized rules, and a strong dispute settlement system and functioning dispute settlement system at the World Trade
WTO
Organization.
You're talking about, yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Halstead, just along the same lines, I love the term sasqueak that you use. We know that our farmers, the grain farmers in Saskatchewan, as well as these other commodities, are really efficient and have done an amazing job in terms of maximizing productivity, minimizing fertilizer use, and all sorts of other things. And when we're talking about global food insecurity, do you feel that given how much the farmers in other areas, for example, you mentioned Africa, might be able to improve their productivity, do you feel it's useful to for Canada to try and export some of our practices and our technology to other countries to help them increase their local production as opposed to exporting more wheat to those countries?
Yes and no. I want to produce as much as I can to sell into the world market, and I think my neighboring farmers do too. But a number of those things have gone, because of trade and all that. Our air drills, for example, a lot of them are developed on the prairies, and they're used around the world now. So equipment's used around the world. Ideas aren't just local. Wheat breeding, for example, that I talked about, there's a sharing of germplasm that happens around the world that looks for the best traits that may produce the next new variety that's better. So there is some sharing. Obviously, we don't go out and myself as a producer or as a member of a farm organization, that's not my job, or my role is to go to another country and try and help them improve. But, I think...
Thank you, Mr. Halstead. Sorry, you're out of time. Thanks, Ms. Taylor-Roy. Now to Madame Laroche pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, Mrs. Larouche. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the witnesses for being here today for this second panel. And we're studying the importance of food security, and we see this. My first question is for Mrs. Nicol. She highlighted what we're doing well in Quebec, and so I'd like to ask you, do you have in your preparation notes, well, we did notice that in 2019 you had a report on food waste done in the supply chain in Canada. So here's my question. You spoke to this a little bit, but if you could add more detail, do you have any concrete examples of food waste in different sectors? And what solutions could you propose for those in particular?
Second Harvest commissioned Value Chain Management International to do the research because we're a charity and these are experts in this field. So I have this right here, and we did have recommendations. We show right across the supply chain, and we use a tomato as an example of this is where it gets lost in processing, this is where it gets lost on the farm, this is where it gets lost, milk is getting dumped. So I absolutely would give everybody the Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste to read. And we had recommendations that were to measure, to set targets, to act. And we also had some recommendations around best before dates. And following the UK's example right now of best before doesn't mean bad after, so why do we keep doing this? So we do have a whole lot of recommendations in the back of the document that I'm happy to share with everybody here.
So you can send us this information. Thank you so much, because we see this. It's crucial to work on this and to have food banks I have food banks in my riding, and they want to be compensated for their best practices. And I believe that it's important for producers to collaborate and that we're able to have a multiplier effect. I'd like to, Mrs. Citeau, ask you a question. On your website, there's research done, the CAFTA website, on the and you're asking for the export of Canadian products in an optic of free trade. Here's my question, and I've spoken with producers and processors. Do you think it would be a good idea to have a reciprocity of standards to avoid unfair competition for our producers here? Sometimes in Europe, in the US, in China, even in Brazil, as you're saying on your website, sometimes the standards are more lenient than ours.
I commented on the need for competitive access to global markets. And what that means, it's the level playing field. So it's to have an environment that enable our farmers, or farmers from Quebec or Saskatchewan, to have the same level of access than a farmer in Australia or Europe to the world's global market. So that's about the rules, and that's also about harmonization of standards. And this is why one of the CAFTA priorities, and I think I touched on this in my remarks, is to make sure that there is internationally work, that Canada is working with international partners and at different multilateral institutions like the OIE, the FAO, those international standard-setting agencies, so that there is work towards this.
But it's not the current situation. And this is creating an unfair situation for producers here. As I was saying, for example, in Europe, in some countries, the standards are not the same. So could you explain how we could work to improve these standards, but especially to reduce the level of inequality? Because internationally, this sometimes makes it that we are not competitive because there's no reciprocity. The standards are not at the same level.
Where a large portion of our membership has frustrations, in large part with in the context of the Canada-EU Free Trade Agreement, as the European Union is slow to abide by the spirit of the agreement. So certainly, some of those issues are very familiar to them. The solution is better implementation, better enforcement of the rules. And I'm not saying in the EU context specifically, but overall, there needs to be, when we go out and our officials go out and negotiate free trade agreements, there needs to be in advance clear understanding and close work with the industry so that we understand the regulatory framework that we are looking at, so that we are better prepared. But overall, I will say is better rules and better implementation and enforcement mechanisms.
Thank you. Thanks, Madame Laroche. Now to Mr. McGregor for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ms. Citeau, I'd like to start with you. In our previous panel, we had Professor Charlebois, and I was taking notes during his opening statement. I believe he said that, our exports are continuing to grow at a pretty significant pace, and that we hit $82 billion in 2021. Is that something you can confirm? Does that sound like a figure that you've heard before?
I think so, and I wonder if that number may include fisheries or not.
But, the Barton report had a goal of $75 billion by 2025, so it's pretty impressive that despite the many challenges out there, we've already surpassed the target 4 years ahead of schedule. We had Canada's beef producers say they have been surpassing their targets and doing quite well. I know there are challenges out there, but it seems like our farmers are indeed stepping up to the plate. I also have the privilege of sitting on our Public Safety and National Security Committee, and a few weeks ago we had as a witness the Chief of Defense Staff, General Wayne Eyre. He painted a very worrying picture of the world we're getting into with respect to Russia and China. And I know that, future conflicts, they may not be overt military actions, but they have a serious consequence for world trade. So I know your organization must be looking at the geopolitical context. Could you maybe explore a little bit more on the theme of resiliency? Like if Russia and China are going to be major adversaries, as our Chief of Defense Staff sincerely believes they will be, what kind of contingency plans do we need to put in place with respect to our agricultural trade to take that into account?
I think a lot of the work that is being done both by officials and industry in terms of strengthening trade relations with key trading partners needs to continue to happen. As a matter of fact, a portion of our members have set really their eyes on the Asia, Indo-Pacific region, and one of the ways they are proposing to really tackle and do better in these markets is by having boots on the ground. So they're calling, and CAFTA is calling also on the need for stronger advocacy capacity within the diplomatic network so that not only our officials and those representing Canada, who already do a very important and good job promoting the sector, but are equipped with the proper information and tools when it comes to preventing issues from becoming problems.
Thank you. I want to move on to Mr. Halstead. Mr. Halstead, I just want to carry on the fertilizer discussion because I think a lot of Canadians are getting mixed messages on this. It's true that if you, depending on how you apply your fertilizer, you can get wildly different emissions resulting from it. That's correct, right?
That's believed to be correct. There's needs to be some regional and even at a local level studies done on how the different climates can affect that. But yes.
And because I was just going to the website, and the Government of Canada says there is no mandatory reduction in fertilizer use. They're in fact hoping for more collaboration with groups like yours. So I guess, in what form would you like to see that collaboration take place? Because, we ultimately want to make recommendations to the government.
Yeah, I guess it's reaching out, and we've already had some discussions. We've been part of the fertilizer task force that's taken on some hearings, and that we've had people involved in that. So we are carrying on with that. But like you said, there's mixed messages. At first, we didn't know what was going on, and then it's just emissions. But that wasn't the first message that a lot of people heard, or the version of it that got out there at least.
Been mixed messages, so I appreciate that. What also struck me with interest too is in your opening statement, you had talked, I guess, about the partnership you had with AAFC about different wheat variety breeding programs, and I know we've had other witnesses talk about that. How you can increase the yield through different varieties, but also allow them to withstand better extreme weather events. Can you maybe expand a little bit on that within the theme of food security, how that's helping your farmers meet their goals and meet the challenges of this century?
Yeah, we do have a little more. We do have a little more information in our briefing letter too, or briefing note. But we're always working on environmental stressors and any way that drought resistance and things like that. So. We're always looking at new and different ways we can breed. And, I'm not the breeder, but, we fund the breeders and, we give them, kind of like a strategic plan, things that we want to accomplish as an industry.
It's my time to the chair.
Well, thank you very much. Merry Christmas to me. I appreciate that. Maybe I'll use it up at the end. But now we'll move on to the Conservatives. Mr. Lehoux for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci aux témoins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. My first question is for Mrs. Cito. You said that, yes, we should develop this issue of exports further, but even prior to the pandemic, we heard about non-tariff barriers set out by different countries. What is your point of view on this? We don't have a lot of control or no control. How do you interpret these barriers? Because we see them increasingly. Unfortunately, yes. And if we look at the past 20 years, where we see there have been important barriers to trade, and even with free trade agreements, we can see that trade has tripled. So tariffs have reduced, in fact, but that the number of non-tariff barriers affecting trade has tripled. So we believe, following studies done in Geneva, that these barriers have a cost that vary between 20 and 40%. So it's the equivalent of a tariff, really. And this is added to the cost for our exporters. Yes, so Mrs. Cito, you said that it's important to be vigilant and precise in our negotiations. We're negotiating new agreements or renewing other trade agreements. Do you think that producers and processors should participate in around the table? We see that they're excluded for the finalization. Do you think that that's the correct way to proceed? I can only speak on behalf of the members that we represent, and this covers the agri-food sector, except for some horticulture and some supply management. We are in close communication with negotiators, with the government, with the agri-food department, and global affairs. So not at the table per se, never, but we are involved, and we provide the market perspective, and the negotiators don't have that. Thank you. I'm going to give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Martin, but I wanted to speak to this where you do have an impact, but it doesn't seem like it's taken into account.
Questions for both Mr. Halstead and Ms. Situ. It's the same question in a sense. When you talked about harmonization and standards, our biggest trading partner is the United States, and will continue to be. If we have a carbon tax of 170 and they have none, how do you feel that lack of harmonization will affect you in the trade?
I leave that question to our members. This is something that they are looking at individually, and that does not affect them all equally. So it's not yet a CAFTA issue, but I'm happy to circle back for those who want to provide comments.
Great. Mr. Halstead, in the sense that you as a producer, in the sense of the ripple effect of that tax, how do you feel you will be in the sense of a producer as competitive to the largest trading partner to the south?
Well, I'm getting a little feedback there. Some estimates by the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan, who we partner with on some of these initiatives, estimate that it could be as much as 7 times the increase in some of the costs of our inputs from before there was a carbon tax. So it's significant, and we can't survive long-term on high commodity prices. That's hurting consumers too. We need to be competitive globally. To be competitive globally, we also have to be profitable. So that's how we can be sustainable.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shields. Now we'll move to Mr. Turnbull for 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to all the witnesses for being here today. My questions will focus on Ms. Nicol. Very happy to have you. Always have admired the work of Second Harvest. For a number of years, I've known about the work you do, and I thank you, your organization's leadership team, and all the volunteers and people that make up your organization. I just wanted to say, so you're a charitable organization, correct? Okay, and you are solving for food waste along the value chain within our food system, and you divert that waste to feed hungry people while also diverting organic waste and thereby reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Is that correct? Okay, great. And so do you consider yourself a social innovation?
Yes.
I would as well. And how much revenue do you generate, and where do you generate your revenue from to keep your operations going?
So our revenue is generated through, like most charities, diversity of funds. So foundations, corporate, individuals. We've received a fair amount of money from the Emergency Food Security Fund to allocate across the country. And we do, we do a little bit of social enterprise in terms of charging people for some training and that kind of thing.
Great. Are there opportunities for you to have more, to generate more undesignated revenue through earned revenue streams?
Yes, I think there absolutely is. I think there's an opportunity within the charitable sector. There's a great deal of surplus food that we found out during we just know. The value of our food this year alone was $180 million. And our revenue was about, I think it was about $35 million to move all that food because it's all free food. But there's a charitable network of 61,000 charities that people don't consider. We hear about food banks, and they're very important, and we support them, but there's only, I think, 2,500 of them. That means we're 4,500 of them. But there's a whole invisible network that needs this food in spaces because they, like mental health places or senior centers or schools. So we really think it's critical to get that food to them, and it's healthy. And if we don't get them the healthy food, we have terrible educational outcomes. The research is done, terrible health outcomes. So we believe that we can actually get some of the surplus food at a deeply discounted cost, which is what we did with the Surplus Food Rescue Program. And there are charities that will purchase it. We are spending millions of dollars on food in addition to distributing free food.
Right, so you could essentially supply them with healthy, affordable food at a lower cost than they would have got on the market.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. And so could Second Harvest scale up significantly its operations to serve more communities, and what would you need to do that?
Absolutely, and it's always funding. That's the reality of life. You just need more funding. Our biggest challenge is transportation. The food is out there. The latest research we did showed that only 4% of businesses that had surplus food were donating it, which gives us, it's great opportunity. It's not a negative. But moving that food across the country and as far north as you can go comes at a considerable cost when we have supply chain issues already. So it would be for transportation for the most part.
Okay, and isn't it the case that there's about a 30% waste in our food system today? Is that correct?
There's a 58% waste.
So there's a significant amount of food that is going to waste that could be going to feed people.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that's great. And I guess lastly, if you had access to capital to scale up your operations, is that one of the key aspects of what you need? It's really access to capital?
It's access to capital. So we built out logistics. We work with all the 61,000 charities. We have a hub and spoke model because we don't want to build in huge capital across the country if it exists. Let's all work together. But we also have an app that's connecting that, and there's a cost to technology that increases the more people use it.
I still have time. Oh, this is great. Okay, and in terms of the steps in the value chain, are there any other areas that you could target in terms of where we could achieve additional efficiencies and prevent further food waste?
Absolutely. So in manufacturing, because again, we believe in prevention first, but if you can't prevent it, then please divert it to feed people. But there are great organizations that are doing audits in processors, in manufacturers, at farms, to give them the economic benefit of finding those areas that you are wasting food. And really, some of them are the simplest things that they can do, and they're aggregate about $250,000 a year on these small factories that they're saving in the end.
Thank you. And in terms of the overall food insecurity problem in Canada, what percentage of that 5 million or more people could Second Harvest actually support?
All of them. Last year we supported 4.3 million. And if we have the food, we can get it to everybody that needs it. And I think what's critical is people are going everywhere to get food, and we understand that. So that's another bit of research that we did, Canada's Invisible Food Network. We know where they are. We know where the food is. So it's really just a matter of connecting these dots. It's a really common sense solution.
Thank you.
Ms. Nicholl. Sorry, Mr. Turnbull, you abused that extra 54 seconds. No, it's okay. It was good. It was good testimony. that was. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that charity right now, if you'll indulge me, Ms. Nicholl. And I appreciate that comment you had about doesn't mean it's bad after. I certainly remember as a kid picking mold off the cheese and the bread and still eating it. Where my kids won't do that anymore. But you mentioned about transportation. We've heard that a lot from many other witnesses. What are your obstacles to transportation? Is it costs, labor, to expand that?
It's cost. It's cost of transportation, really, and just having access to it. So, we work with rail as well, and sea lifts and planes and trucks. So it is, the cost is, we always pull it together and figure it out, but we're perishable food, so there's not a lot of life left on it, right? Like it doesn't sit in a warehouse very long. It's a very quick turnover.
So carbon taxes on transportation could have an impact on your ability. So, sorry, Ryan, I had to. Just a question to Mr. Halstead, too, and you mentioned about the misinformation that's going out there about the fertilizer emissions reductions. How beneficial or what difference would this have made to your industry as agriculture producers had the government had these discussions and consultations with you before announcing the policy? Would they have had a better understanding that you're 30%, 70% more efficient in fertilizer use than other countries, as an example?
Well, we are trying to be efficient all the time because of the costs, too. So, just because there's a consultation doesn't mean we wouldn't stop trying to be efficient. Fertilizer is expensive, but it's very much needed to grow our crops. It is, as was mentioned in the previous presentations, it's the fuel for our crops. And we convert that. Our plants use the carbon and sequester it in the soil. So, I think there just needs to be the greater recognition of what producers are already doing. And we're going to continue to try to do things better. There's new technologies just starting to be used in mapping and variable rates that are going to help us be somewhat more efficient. But, there's just limited things you can do. If your costs rise, then it affects your sustainability too, because to be sustainable, if I'm profitable, I can work on being more sustainable. If I'm not profitable, it's hard to work on being sustainable.
Thanks, Mr. Halstead, and thanks.
It's survival.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you, John.
Thanks everybody for your testimony today, and Ms. Sito as well. The importance of Canadian exports to global food security, obviously it plays a critical role as well, and thank you very much for your testimony. To my colleagues, thanks very much. I will now welcome a motion to adjourn. Mr. McGregor, thanks. Adjourned.